Welcome to the deep dive. We're all about finding those really key nuggets of knowledge from interesting sources, giving you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today, we're diving into a concept that, honestly, once you get it, you'll probably start seeing it everywhere. It's quiet power, you know. Our focus is on an insight from the Art of Strategic Unpredictability. It's a source that really gets into the mechanics of influence and interaction. And our mission, well, it's pretty specific today. We want to really pull apart one very potent statement from this source, which is, keep people guessing. Being unpredictable makes others cautious around you. Now that sounds almost simple, right? Maybe too simple, but there's actually a whole lot packed in there, psychologically, practically. We're not just going to skim the surface. We want to peel back the layers, figure out the mechanics, and see what it really means for you, like in your day-to-day stuff, negotiations, even just how you come across. Okay, so let's start with that first part, keep people guessing. When you hear that, what comes to mind? Is it someone who's just chaotic, flying by the seat of their pants, randomly changing their mind or approach? Or is it something, more deliberate, more calculated?
Yeah, that's a really important distinction to make right off the bat. It's crucial to get that keeping people guessing.
Yeah.
In this context, it's not about being erratic or chaotic. Actually, that kind of behavior, it usually just makes people disengage, or worse, distrust you. Totally counterproductive. What's fascinating here, and what the source points to, is that this is a strategic act. It's conscious. You're deliberately controlling the information flow about, say, your intentions or your next move. Think of it like creating an intentional ambiguity. You're not just a wild card. You're a player who sometimes plays a card nobody expected. But it's by choice. It's got a purpose behind it.
Intentional ambiguity. I like that framing.
Exactly. It's about stopping others from being able to, perfectly anticipate what you're going to do next. Think about a really good poker player, right? They don't always bet the same way. They don't always show their tells. It's not really about tricking people. It's more about managing their expectations and how they might respond to you. You're just introducing enough uncertainty so people can't easily stick you in a box or predict exactly how you'll react. And that pause, that little bit of, it forces them to maybe rethink their own assumptions instead of just running on autopilot.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So it's about having agency, deciding when to introduce that uncertainty and how much. Sounds like a real skill, actually. But the kicker, the part that gives it real power, seems to be the why. Why does doing this make others cautious? This is where it gets really interesting for me. What's the psychology behind that? Why does unpredictability lead to caution around you?
Well, if you connect it back to just basic human psychology, it's actually pretty straightforward, but also quite deep. Our brains fundamentally are pattern recognition machines. We are wired to predict things. We try to make sense of our environment, the people in it, because prediction gives us a feeling of control, of safety.
Right, predictability is comfortable.
Exactly. So when we come across someone whose behavior we can't reliably predict, that basic sense of control, our understanding of the situation, it just diminishes. Our brain, especially the part trying to plan and make sense of things, kind of goes on high alert trying to figure out the new pattern, or lack thereof. And this uncertainty, this lack of a clear mental map for that person, it triggers a very natural, almost instinctual defensive stance. And that defensive stance, that is caution.
Oh, okay. So it's a fundamental response to the unknown.
Precisely. And it's not just a vague feeling of unease. It actually increases what psychologists call cognitive load. When people can't easily predict you, they have to use more mental energy thinking about your actions, trying to figure out what you're really up to.
All right, they have to think more.
Yes. And that extra thinking makes snap judgments harder, less appealing. It forces them to slow down their own thinking. They can't just jump to conclusions or make easy assumptions about you. They have to watch more closely, weigh their own options more carefully. They start considering multiple possibilities for why you're doing what you're doing or what you might do next. Which means basically they have to reconsider their own strategy when dealing with you. So they become less likely to act impulsively, less likely to make bold or presumptive moves towards you because the risk of getting it wrong feels much higher. They tend to default to a more measured approach, sometimes even more respectful, simply because they don't quite know what's coming.
So it's like you're forcing them out of their usual habits, their default responses. You're creating a kind of mental speed bump for them. That's definitely powerful.
Yeah.
But I wonder, isn't there a risk here, a fine line? Where does strategic unpredictability end? And just being seen as, unreliable or flaky begin? Could it backfire and lead to distrust?
That is an absolutely crucial question. Because yes, that line is vital, get it wrong, and you undermine yourself completely. The source, The Art of Strategic Unpredictability is very clear on this. This strategy is not about being unreliable. It's not about being untrustworthy. Those things destroy relationships and influence. Strategic unpredictability works within a framework of overall competence and, importantly, integrity.
Okay, so reliability underneath it all.
Exactly. You're not unpredictable about your core values or whether you'll follow through on commitments. That stuff needs to be solid. Where you introduce the unpredictability is in method, maybe timing, or specific tactics.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Imagine a leader who consistently delivers great results. Their team trusts their overall competence. But how they solve a particular problem this time might be totally different from last time. Or who they suddenly decide to delegate a really key task to might be a surprise. Maybe they shift focus unexpectedly from priority A to priority B, but later a clear, logical reason emerges. See, this maintains trust in their ultimate direction and ability, but it still keeps people guessing about the immediate path or approach.
I see. So the art part is really about the balance.
Precisely. Just enough uncertainty to make people pause, think, be cautious, but not so much that they think you're inconsistent or, can't be counted on. Push it too far and you risk isolating yourself. So the key is always that the ambiguity serves a purpose. It's strategic.
That distinction really helps clarify things. It's unpredictability with intent, within a reliable frame. So, okay, keeping that in mind, what does this mean for the person doing it, for the strategically unpredictable individual? What are the real-world results of making others cautious around you? How does that actually benefit someone, and what does that caution look like day to day?
Yeah, this brings up an important point because the outcomes are quite significant. They touch on subtle but real power dynamics. For the person being strategically unpredictable, when others become cautious around them, it translates into some pretty clear benefits. For one, people are generally less likely to challenge you directly, or at least they won't do it casually without really thinking it through first.
Because they don't know how you'll react.
Exactly. They're also less likely to make assumptions about your time, your resources, or what you want. They won't just presume.
So it changes how people engage.
It really does. They tend to approach you with more circumspection. That's a good word for it. They're more careful, they consider different angles, think about consequences before they act or speak. And often you'll see more deference, a kind of respect where they might yield to your judgment more readily, or at least give your ideas very serious consideration. It subtly shifts the whole dynamic. You end up in a position where people approach you more thoughtfully, often giving you more space, literally and figuratively. You kind of gain this, I'd almost call it a gravity of presence.
Gravity of presence. I like that. It's not about intimidation then. It's not creating fear.
No, not at all. Fear is usually destructive in the long run. This is about fostering a unique kind of respect, a careful engagement. And it comes from this cultivated air of, thoughtful unpredictability.
Okay, so let's make it even more concrete. How might this play out in, say, a negotiation? Or maybe within a team at work?
Oh, absolutely. Think about a negotiation. Everyone expects you to fight hard over the price, right? That's the predictable move. But what if you suddenly pivot? You barely mention price and instead focus intensely on, say, long-term partnership guarantees or maybe exclusivity rights.
That would throw them off.
Totally. This unexpected move forces the other side to completely reevaluate their game plan. They can't just rely on their pre-planned responses to price objections. They have to slow down, figure out why you shifted focus, what the implications are. That caution makes them less likely to try and steamroll you or rush things.
Right, it buys you time and control.
Exactly. Or think about a team setting. A leader who usually assigns big projects to the same two senior people. What if one day they give a really critical project to someone more junior, someone unexpected, or maybe a leader who's been known for micromanaging details suddenly gives a team an unprecedented amount of autonomy on something important?
Keeps people on their toes, I guess.
It does. It prevents complacency. Team members learn they can't just assume how the leader will operate. So the thinking goes, they need to always be prepared, performing well, thinking critically about what they're doing. The goal isn't to create anxiety, ideally. It's to foster more proactive work, a higher level of individual thinking and responsibility, because nobody can fully predict the leader's next move or exactly how they'll evaluate things this time. It's using that unknown to, hopefully, inspire more diligent and thoughtful action from everyone.
Wow, okay, so it's really not just about managing expectations on the surface. It feels like it's about reshaping how others even perceive your fundamental approach.
Yes.
It's a much deeper game than I first thought. It definitely redefines what subtle power can look like. Creating an environment where what you do carries more weight, gets more consideration. So for you listening right now, maybe take a second. Can you think of times you've seen this in action? Encountered someone who operates like this, not chaotically, but just kept you guessing a bit, made you approach them more carefully? Or maybe think about your own life, work, negotiations, personal projects. Are there situations where introducing just a touch of this controlled ambiguity might actually shift the dynamic in a useful way? Just understanding this principle, it gives you a really powerful lens, doesn't it? For watching interactions, navigating them, understanding why people react the way they do to certain individuals, and maybe even thinking about how you want to shape those interactions yourself. So just to bring it all together again, our deep dive today zeroed in on that one potent insight from The Art of Strategic Unpredictability. Keep people guessing. Being unpredictable makes others cautious around you. The key takeaway, it's not about being random. It's deliberate. It's about using that human desire for predictability, kind of turning it on its head to earn a different kind of respect, more consideration, maybe even a unique type of influence, not through obvious force, but through subtle, intentional ambiguity.
Exactly. And maybe a final thought to leave you with as you go about your day. How might really understanding this one principle change how you approach things, or even how you interpret what others are doing? Beyond just making people cautious, what other conversations or thoughts does this idea unlock about influence itself? Think about those subtle power dynamics. What happens when you introduce just a little bit of the unknown into a situation? What opportunities might that create? What insights could it give you? Not just about others, but about mastering your own, strategic presence. It's definitely something interesting to chew on, maybe even to experiment with, carefully, of course.